My new book is now available. It's called Peace Over Pain: How to Eliminate Chronic Pain and or Chronic Illness so you can break free from the medical monopoly. If you want it instantly, you can get the ebook and audiobook together as a package on peaceoverpain.com. And of course, the paperback is available on Amazon right now.
Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Would you like to win at life? Welcome to episode number 147. Today, I have the honor of sitting down to talk to Leigh Steinberg. He is a legendary sports agent, an author, and a motivational speaker. Before we begin, sit down, relax, and take in this beautiful recording. Let's begin. All right, Leigh, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, in your busy career, what's your method for handling the stress? Because sports isn't easy.
Well, I think the first thing is to exercise regularly because it burns off a lot of so-called tension or stress and gets endorphins going. So that's one thing I do. I also do hyperbaric oxygen, which has been shown to have a really positive effect on with that extra oxygen and the rest of it. And then I love reading. So I can get away from things that there are people who are workaholics. I'm not. I work very hard, but then when I'm off, I'm off. And
Really?
so it's creating that wall or that division between active work. So if you walked into my home, I have no posters, no memorabilia. I have none of that.
You separate it.
Yes, that's here, but at home there's none of that. And then my dad had two core values, one of which was treasure relationships, especially family. And the second was to try to make a meaningful difference in the world. So part of what stops it from being stressful is that I know every day going into the office, with all our forward planning, with everything supposedly under control, there will inevitably be a series of reverses and problems that you couldn't anticipate. So if you know they're all coming, instead of that being a stressful event, you just assume that that's going to happen and you're ready for it. I also try to put some emotional distance between some of the work I do. So while it may be intense, my reaction to it doesn't have to be intense. Those are some of the things I do. In addition to working out with a personal trainer, I walk 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And then it helps very much to have a home that overlooks the ocean. So there's something very peaceful about looking at water.
Now, you dropped some gems there. One of the things that really stood out to me is that you separate personal from work. A lot of people cannot do that. That's very difficult to do. How long have you been doing that? Is that a recent thing or something you even did as a young man?
No, I've always tried to bifurcate that, and also trying to be present in this moment. So in this moment, I have no idea what day of the week it is. I don't know what I'm doing after this. I have no interest in my cell phone. All I'm doing is sharing these moments with you and listening to your voice and the text and the subtext. So the same thing for relaxation. When I'm at home or the beach or on vacation, I'm into that moment. And the fact that I have phone calls waiting or something else, I consider the phone is a request for your time. You're not obligated to answer that phone at every second. There's no law that says you have to be completely fixated with what's on your phone. So when I go home, I put the phone away. I might look every few hours or at the end of an evening, but I'm off duty.
Well put. So when did you start getting into present moment awareness? Was that something early on in your career or later?
I think it always happened. And I think the most important skill in life is listening skills. So if you can draw out another human being and understand what their deepest anxieties and fears are and greatest hopes and dreams, and tune in at a deeper level so that you put yourself in the other person's heart and mind, you can gracefully navigate your way through everything. But I've always tried to focus on what's in front of me. It's not that we don't do any planning, it's just that this moment that we're sharing is every bit as important and critical as any other moment that I'll live. And the whole concept of, killing time and the rest of it is like time's the one inexorable quality that that's finite and goes away. So why not get the most out of this moment, and then I'll get the most out of the next.
That's right. Squeeze the juice out of it. Now, you mentioned also preparing yourself for something that could happen or may happen, a stressor. That's very stoic. That's very prepare for the worst, but expect the best. There's a lot that philosophy can work towards, even perhaps losing a loved one, right?
Yes. It's there's no etiquette for grief, right? But if you understand the fragility and transience of life and lifespan, then you understand that the time to tell someone that you love them is right now. And the time to tell them how much they mean to you is right now. And it's, you want to be expressive with people and don't leave any doubt as to what your feelings are. And in that way, you won't sit there and say, well, if I had had the chance, I knew he must have known or she must have known how much I love you. But I see life as a long march with columns of people going on, and then every once in a while someone drops off the side, and that's an inevitability. So you want to treasure the time you had with them before they're gone.
Right on. In your opinion, what's the key to fulfillment in this life?
Doing a internal inventory that makes it clear to yourself what your goals and priorities are. Is it short-term economic gain? Is it long-term economic security? Is it spiritual values? Is it family values? Is it geographical location? Is it autonomy? What is most critical to you? But I do think that the key for me is helping other people, and that admonition my father gave me to try to heal pain and suffering. So the point is, I have a deep belief in my practice with athletes being role models and retracing their roots and giving money and time back to their high school community, collegiate, professional, and then being messengers. So the heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis cut a public service announcement. My client, real men don't hit women. So feeling like you're having an impact on the world, that maybe it's a little nicer place because you were here, feeling that you were a good father and a good son and a good brother, and you were there for your friends in times of crisis. I think that following those values leads to fulfillment, because I know that's what I'm on the earth to do, to treasure relationships, especially family, and to make a meaningful difference in the world. So what fulfills me is not the money in contracts I negotiate or the fees. It's watching the maturation of young men stimulating the best values, and then together seeing what we can do to use the high profile of professional athletes to trigger positive imitative behavior. So we could take on sex trafficking or bullying or domestic violence or racism or the environment and make a difference. So that's the fulfillment.
Sports is a great platform to help in other arenas. Absolutely. Sports and music connects everyone.
And, we're a celebrity-based culture now, so that, and athletes are part of that. So the starting quarterbacks in the NFL have tremendous profile, and they can use that influence for good in a positive way. So for me, fulfillment is being there when my daughter has a problem and being able to talk her through it. It's being there for a friend when they're in need and it's not convenient to be a friend. It's watching work done, put the 200 single mother and their family into the first home they'll ever own by making a down payment and moving them in. It's feeling that we're always striving to make a positive difference.
Yeah. Now, I go back about almost 20 years with Chris Cabot, who was also on this podcast about a year ago. And so now is he president of your company or CEO or both?
He's the CEO.
Yeah.
He runs it day to day. He's in charge. And I still have my hand in, but the younger agents at our firm are building their own life and their own legacy, and Chris is doing a great job.
Yeah, and so that's what I was going to ask is, if he's running the day-to-day, what are you now doing? I see you're doing public speaking. You're kind of going around, and what keeps you going?
Well, first of all, I still have responsibilities for our older clients, for the Mahomes and Tua Tagovailoas and Taylor Heineke of the world. So I'm still one of their agents, and so I can't abandon that. But one of the things I've been doing is trying to aggregate modalities of healing that have the opportunity in the athletic realm to make them more competitive in key moments and return them to service quicker. And for all the rest of us, keep our cognitive abilities much sharper, work with the brain, heal concussed brains, but also to extend longevity. So it's hyperbaric oxygen, which I've done 140 times. It's stem cells, which I've had 300 million of them. It's a brain process called RTMS that stimulates the brain and connections within it. It's light stem, which gives energy, protein folding, ATP. It's biofeedback in a brain sense that stimulates it. It's a water that elevates energy. So I've sort of been on a search for the breakthroughs in biomed and what they can mean, not only to athletes, but to all of us. You're a little young to need it, but eventually.
Well, I mean, you're talking right up my alley, because that's what I do. I help people go from health burden to health miracle, as I like to say. And so there's a lot to talk about there, maybe at another time. Today is all about inner peace, but being healthy is part of that. I like to refer to them as health burdens, because that's what happens is when we fall into pain, it becomes such a burden on us,
So you led off with a question about stress.
Yeah.
And I do a hyperbaric chamber 3 times a week. And when I get out of it, I feel re-energized, and
Right.
I might go in there with a tough day, but they do light stem, hyperbaric, and then a thing called brain body boost. And when you come out, all the cares of the day are gone.
Well, now I got to introduce you to postural therapy.
I'd love to learn about it.
Now that will blow your mind. I was looking through your page and I saw that your mother is 94 years old. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And so how do you maintain that with your mother? Obviously an advanced senior. 94 is a good run, man. That's a great run, That's an A. And death is a big topic on this podcast. I bring death experts in. I've had people with near-death experiences. I've had people that do end-of-life counseling. It's a very big topic that the listeners explore right here on this podcast. How do you deal with your mortality and your mother's?
So my mother actually had a stroke about 20 years ago, and it impaired her to the point where she has a few good moments, but mostly is not the mom I remember. So we've been dealing with that for years. At 94, her alert cognitive state is narrowing. And so I've always said that at a certain point, the parents become the children and the children become the parents. So it's an adjustment. I remember when my father died of cancer, and this robust, vital source of strength for all of us. I mean, it was destabilizing to watch him, his body waste away to cancer. But I think that with my mom, we try to keep her comfortable. We try to keep her as active as she can be. But her memory, short term, is gone. So when I first saw that transference from the vital, funny, life of the party mom to someone lying there, it's destabilizing. It shakes you to the core, because you always have the sense there's a higher level of family on this earth than we are. And but I had 65, 70 good years with her, so I remember those moments. As to my own mortality, I think there's part of the human brain that shuts off issues that are too large. In other words, there's a certain fear of death, and so you just blot it out. But I applaud the fact that you talk it through, because you'd like to have a point of view and acceptance of the life cycle before it hits you. But I'm 73, and peers are retired and dying, and I'm still right in the middle of my practice. So I think part of it is that we have a new sense of age. When I thought of somebody who was 73, I thought of someone with sitting on a park bench with mismatched Madras shorts and black socks and black shoes, buttoned up to the top with drool coming down.
Right.
And, I'm physically able to do all sorts of things. And right in the middle, I'm about to write another book, which will be my third. We're running agent academies that help teach younger people. And I continue to crusade against concussion, and I'm organizing a education program that will create a new generation of leadership against hate. So I think that and I have two sons that unfortunately are blind from something called retinitis pigmentosa. So I need to, so they're both legally blind. So there's plenty of reason that I need to be here and at the height of whatever powers I am. As I said, I've been exploring. Last week I was in Orlando. There's a center called Lake Nona, which is a planned community, all dedicated to health and wellness. And I did a biofeedback brain treatment that showed me where I was cognitively, and worked on whatever problems there were.
Well, I'm glad you stay in the present moment because you got a lot going on. It stands out to me that you're 73. You're a senior by Americans' definition. Sorry, I didn't mean.
No, that's funny. I almost spit up my drink.
And your mother is an advanced senior who needs care, and it's a senior taking care of a senior, helping taking care of a senior, and then two sons that are blind. That's quite a bit.
Well, you understand that the chronological age may be 73, but I'm still out rocking and rolling, and I don't carry that with me. And I deal with lots of young people, and I think our generation, the baby boomers, who are the big bulge in the population because of servicemen coming home from war and having delayed families, so we're this massive generation, are redefining age. So 73 is the new 43.
Right on. I'm about to be 43, so
there you go.
We're yeah. So it's I've always been interested in people who are really into their careers and they keep going and going because they like it. They like what they do. I automatically think of someone like Jerry Jones, the owner of the Cowboys, yourself, Vince McMahon, the CEO of the WWE is like 76. You think of someone like Hugh Hefner. He worked till he was like 85 or whatever. Other people who may not like what they do, they retire, right? 63, right? They're done. Do you think loving what you do is key in your health?
Absolutely. It's having a sense of passion and fulfillment in what you do. And it's, I just created a career out of things I liked. I love sports. There really was no sports agentry when I started. I love books, so I've written a number of them. I like movies, so I've been technical advisor on a bunch of them. I like public speaking, so I do it. I like writing in all its forms, so I've written book reviews and movie reviews, and was a columnist for Forbes. I want to make a difference in the world, so we work on these social and charitable programs, and there's still satisfaction in the one-on-one mentoring young athletes and helping stimulate their best maturation. So I just picked all the things I thought were fun, travel, being part of it, the ability. There may be people who have traveled more overseas. There are many people, but when it comes to being across this country, I've been quite a few places, and that's fun to experiment with different cultures and everything else. And as I said, I'm always trying to learn more. I read 6 newspapers a day. I read a bunch of magazines. So I love reading. So I set up a book club on Facebook, which we have 2,500 members. So it's just a matter of finding things that you like and then calling it a career. But these are things I do for fun anyway.
Right. I'm the same way. I appreciate that. Speaking of movies, it's well documented that Jerry McQuire was inspired, is supposedly based off of you. How accurate was that movie?
Well, it's Cameron Crowe's great creative production, but he called me up in 1993. This is a director, writer, and he asked me if he could follow me around for a film that would center on the character of a sports agent. So he started following me at the 1993 draft, where I had Drew Bledsoe as a client as the first pick. And then he came to the league meetings in Palm Desert and watched the process where I was showing off a free agent named Tim McDonald. And then he came to a series of games, spent time in my office. He came to pro scouting day at USC, to my Super Bowl party a couple of years. And I told him stories, lots and lots of stories. And then my job as technical advisor was to vet the script to make sure that the willing suspension of disbelief that holds you in a motion picture didn't get fractured. So you didn't think it was phony or the dialogue was stilted. And then he gave me actors like Cuba Gooding Jr., who I took down to the Super Bowl in Arizona, and I made him pretend he was my client all week.
Yeah.
And put him in role. So it's been 25 years, and I rarely walk through an airport or out to dinner where someone doesn't come up to the table and either say 4 words to me or ask me to say 4 words, which start with "show me
the money." So did the goldfish scene really happen?
Things like that happened.
Right.
In other words, he would take poetic license with stories I gave him, but and make no mistake, brilliant writer, brilliant director, and it's all his to his credit. But there's a lot of life up there on the screen.
Did the movie change your life? Did it just flip everything upside down, or what?
Well, it did somewhat, just in the sense that it ended up being the highest grossing sports related film of all time until The Blind Side replaced it. And it's perpetually shown on TV somewhere. And I think it had the effect of humanizing sports agents, of helping them, people understand the real caring that goes on. And obviously, in terms of public perception, there's constant feedback from that.
Now you've represented, I think, over 60 NFL first rounders in the draft.
Yes, 64.
Wow. What's 1 or 2 key moments that really stand out to you over that long career?
I think Troy Aikman winning his first Super Bowl was a critical moment. He we're in his car going back after he had won the game, and he said, and I said to him, how do you feel? What do you think? He said, well, we won the game. I said, no, Troy, you walked into the stadium and you were Troy Aikman, good football player. You walked out and you were Troy Aikman, superstar. And he said, oh, I don't know. And then we got to the hotel and we were mobbed by this huge crowd. So you saw the instantaneous elevation at that critical moment. Steve Young had been in the shadow, the quarterback of the 49ers of Joe Montana for years.
Yeah.
And whatever he did, it was never in the fans' mind's eye what Joe Montana would have done. Joe Montana completed every pass, threw every touchdown pass. They won the Super Bowl every year in the minds of Montana faithful. So he goes out and throws, Steve goes out and throws 6 touchdown passes. And in the game, he's MVP. And I get down on the field and he runs up and says, the monkey's off my back. The monkey's off my back. Then I think a moment where I gave the presenting speech for Warren Moon at the Hall of Fame, which is not something that agents, do. And he was a stunning role model who retraces Roosters High School, his college, had the Crescent Moon Foundation. And we're standing up on the stage, and we've gone through 23 years, 7 years of 6 years of Canada and 17 years otherwise. And and I'm able to give that speech, and at the end we embrace. So that was a highlight. Doing the biggest contract of all time for Steve Young back in the day, and then the same thing happened again with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
But the best moments are at the charitable foundations. So Warren Moon held a banquet one night, and he said, how many people here have gone to college on my scholarships? And one by one, a whole room stood up. And a young doctor came up to me and said, I didn't even have the money to go to college, much less med school. God bless Warren Moon.
Wow.
So it's feeling the change and feeling the impact and all the rest of it.
Yeah. Yeah. The contract with Patrick Mahomes, which is just a year and a half ago or something.
It was June of 2020.
Yeah, and he just seems like a really level-headed young man.
Very grounded.
Yeah. And this contract sort of raises the bar for other quarterbacks, doesn't it? Because
for the first time, quarterbacks are, yes, because every contract builds on that. So next you're going to get Deshaun Watson. Next, you're going to get, each contract builds on itself. So the market just gets bigger and bigger, which pro teams can afford because the television contracts are so big.
Right. What do you see the future of CTE happening? What do you see? Where do you see that going? Because a lot of your work sort of goes with that, with the brain. I've seen photos of you with I don't know what you call it, but the electro looking hat on, and you wear it proudly.
Well, I'm trying to show other people that the premise had always been that the brain only gets worse, it never gets better. And I had a crisis of conscience back in the early 90s because I'm representing half the starting quarterbacks, and they keep getting hit in the head. And we go to doctors and ask how many are too many and what's the magic number. And they have no answers. So I started holding concussion conferences, which we held the 17th one. I think the good news is finally, after all this time, there's some promising treatments that will restore a concussed brain. I mean, we can change the rules of football. We can do all sorts of things preventatively to stop it from happening, but it still will happen. So, and biofeedback has shown promising results. The process I described, our TMS, has shown promising results. So we're getting closer to being able to heal the concussed brain, and that's good news.
Yeah. What would you say is a key to maintaining a happy relationship?
Listening skills. I would say the key is when you go home at night to your significant other, ask her or him how their day went and listen. And when you listen, don't try to fix every problem. Don't try to shortcut the conversation. Let the other person talk as long as they want. And at the end of it, everyone in life wants to be heard and understood for their unique voice. And if you do that every day, then the other person feels heard and validated in the relationship. And also, you need to tell your significant other every day you want them to wake up feeling loved, valued, supported. And if you can create that atmosphere, then things ought to be more harmonious.
When you're dealing with young athletes, you're dealing with young 20-year-olds, there's so much growth they have coming up. It's quite easy for a lot of them to get in trouble, make mistakes. As a sports agent that's been around for a long time, how do you deal with these mistakes? Do you become like a big brother, a father figure? Do you hey,
Well, a
man.
lot of what we do is prevention.
Yeah.
So you sit an athlete down and you talk to them about money and managing money well and having a financial planner in their life and following a budget and doing a financial plan. You talk to them about public behavior and being careful about alcohol, having a designated driver, avoiding being in situations where you get into fights. You talk about being sensitive to the fact that you can't put your hands on anyone, especially women, in anger. So you try to be preventative. Notwithstanding all that, if the mistake comes, then the key is to, does this athlete need help? Do they need to go to AA or anger management, or they need some form of adjustment? And if you do make a mistake, apologize for it quickly, state the real standard, and then the healing can begin.
I saw on your Facebook page that you made a post recently with Passover that just passed over, and I was wondering how in touch you are with your Jewish heritage.
My Jewish heritage is a little less about regular temple attendance and much more about a set of values, which is an understanding of the critical importance of family, an understanding of the value of education, an understanding that I've got a responsibility and obligation to be my brother's keeper and to help other people, belief in the state of Israel. So I'm proud I'm Jewish, but my faith is more the values I took out of being part of that heritage.
On your journey, did you ever explore anything else, such as Buddhism or Taoism or any of the Eastern traditions or anything like that?
I went to Berkeley in the late '60s, so I think there's barely a religious alternative we didn't explore,
Yeah.
and took a look at Buddhism, the whole concept of being present, meditation, and the Hindu religion, Christianity. Obviously, it's a Christian country, and have a lot of respect for that. But yes.
Yeah, the 60s. So Ram Dass, Alan Watts, all in the 60s, right? They're big figures.
Yeah, one of my good friends, Howard Resnick, became the U.S. head of Hare Krishna.
Ah, okay. Right. Yeah. Yeah, because earlier when you mentioned present moment awareness, that's typically an Eastern type of methodology. So that's why I had to ask. Yeah. You weren't a hippie back then, were you? Were you a hippie, Leigh?
Well, we were going to school. So, I was student body president of Berkeley in 1970 in the midst of all the tumult. But we all experienced, longer hair and work shirts and tie-dye and rock music and exploring every alternative life experience. It was an exciting time.
What's the one moment in your life that was really life-changing, that really turned the tide?
Well, I'm in my 13th year of recovery for alcoholism, and I think it was an epiphany that I had that I wasn't a starving peasant in Darfur. I wasn't sitting in the Ukraine with heavy bombing going on. I didn't have the last name Steinberg in Nazi Germany. And nothing was wrong with my body that was not self-induced. So what excuse did I have to be sitting on my father's bed thinking only of where I could find more vodka? And so it was an epiphany that started me back on the road to recovery.
How many years were you over drinking?
I don't know, 4 or 5. I was not a lifetime heavy drinker. It snuck up on me in the later years.
Right. Yeah. So when you come across an athlete that might be into that or something similar, you must have a lot of compassion towards that.
Oh, I do. Having been through that experience, you understand how people become homeless. You understand the power of addiction and how it changes the brain in ways that are inexplicable to people who haven't been through it. Someone would say, "Why don't you just quit?" Well,
right.
My brain and cravings are supplanting my frontal lobe, and I'm going straight to the lizard brain, which is craving.
Right. Yeah. Well, before I get to my last question, where can someone come get your first 2 books, and when can they expect book number 3?
We're just making the deal for book number 3. I'm gonna guess it'll be out at the Super Bowl next year, and the others are still available on Amazon. Winning with Integrity: How to Get What You Want Without Losing Your Soul came out many years ago. There might be old copies on Amazon, but you can still buy the agent.
Now, I just thought of something. How about the show Arliss? Were you involved with Arliss?
Yes, I didn't take credit because I gave them all my worst ideas of things you could never do as an agent, and they wrote scripts around them. So I was careful not to take credit as technical advisor.
That just crossed my mind. Arliss. That was like the first one. Yeah. All right. The last question. What 3 books had the biggest influence on your life?
There's a series of books by Noah Duvall Harari. The first one, Sapiens. And they trace the whole sociology of us as a human species. In other words, how we develop, why we act the way we do, what our fundamental nature is. And there's 3 of them in that series that I think are really, really good. There's a book called, there's a book about President Lincoln's presidency, which is called Team of Rivals by Doris Godwin Kearns. And it explains more about politics and how you can, Lincoln essentially took everyone who was his bitter rival and put him in his government, which is not something people usually do. And he managed to keep all these brilliant, talented people who, some of whom didn't really like him and some of whom didn't like each other. He managed to keep them together so that they could win the Civil War. There's a 3rd book called Collapse by Jared Diamond that talks about the great civilizations over time and what it was that, what the commonality was to bring them to an end. So it's how societies and dominant powers, it's the factors that lead them to come apart. And it's very apropos for today.
All right. Right on. Leigh, it's been a pleasure talking to you today.
Nice talking with you.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.